Okay. Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. I'm joined by my gal pals. I got it right tonight. Lisa Flamino, Russia, and BC Baker. And I think by consensus, we decided we were going to talk first about experiences we've been having. Because I had some doozies on the way home from Knoxville yesterday. And, you know, I don't know if folks could tell after, you know, in our wrap-up session that we had, but all of us were feeling absolutely marvelous. I actually texted BZ that it was either last night or something that we've been giddy.
Yeah.
I personally have been feeling almost giddy. And yeah, so I did text that. Okay.
And it was on the giddy part. I had a couple of conversations with Randy yesterday, and we were having a really good time on the phone. And he was giddy, you know. So
yes,
he was so delightful in the courtroom. He was giddy there. I can only imagine that if he got to talk to you afterwards, and you shared with him the news that Q was posting at almost the very moment that hearing was complete. I'm sorry, but to me that was like, what so we're going to get into that in a different video, but
yeah.
So riding home on that high, there was just and it's
floating home on that high.
Yes, it was.
We hovered over the mountains.
Yeah, we sure did. And you know, I think I shared with you guys, and by virtue of you two, everyone else, that during some of our time when I was visiting Lisa at her rig at the campground, during conversations with some of the trees, it was Leroy who informed me that the ones that weren't so forthcoming with their names and whatnot didn't trust the fact that humanity actually was ready to, you know, I don't know, assume the mantle of whom they are. He didn't trust it or whatever, you know. Because I kind of got that feeling that we've been here before, you know.
So was it that they were not trusting that they were ready to, or not trusting that
humanity was actually meant, that this was, you know, that I don't know, that
not that each individual one was trusting themselves to communicate?
Now, see, I don't know if this was within me that I picked this up, or if it was just from them, period. But it was we've seen this before kind of vibe, and what it feels like, or felt like at the time, and still kind of does, is that this rise in consciousness is something that they've seen before, and perhaps not enough of humanity was able to make the jump or something. This is the impression I got, and then there's a bit of assumption on my part.
Well, it's the seventh time.
Okay, well, see, and I don't know from that, but this is the feeling that I got. It's like,
we got it right this time, but this is the
well, the feeling that I got from them, the way that Leroy talked to me about it, if you want to call it what we did, you know, having a conversation, was that they were a bit standoffish because they didn't believe that humanity was doing what it is that I seem to be claiming we're doing, or whatever, you know. I don't know that they were specifically pointing out me, or just whatever, you know, that this was Leroy's feeling was they just weren't so sure humanity got the memo, if you know what I mean.
You know,
that was the kind of vibe it was too.
Something interesting in the feeling you're emitting when you're telling this part, you know, more specifically than you did before. is that Leroy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was very clear.
I know, I got it. Is a multidimensional aspect of you.
Quite
And
possibly.
so there is that's part, I mean, he may indeed have been meaning as a collective, but that's part of, it's kind of like a mirroring within each other, who happens to be the same each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of thought from, like you have those conversations, actually arguments within yourself, the same kind of, that's what.
Well, and see, I don't know from all that, but I will say that on the trip home yesterday, I sat in silent awe as I wasn't quite sure what I was experiencing. And I didn't even share it with Lisa until today. Was it this morning? I don't think I shared it with you yesterday. It wasn't until this morning.
No, it was this morning.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Just a point here. Yesterday was the trial, so it seems like it was a long time ago, but it was only yesterday. I mean, the hearing.
I know.
I've lived about 10 or 15 years.
I know.
Well, a lot has happened between those moments and these moments. So yeah.
Yes, it has. But on the way, as you know, because Lisa's driving and I'm just sitting in the passenger seat and, just gazing out the window as we're going through the mountains, and it's just so beautiful. And I become aware that I'm seeing sort of a whitish light, a bit of a blur because of the speed of the car on the outline of the trees. And as I just had this overwhelming sense of reverence and awe at what I was feeling and sensing and seeing, because I felt that I was seeing, I don't know, maybe their aura or the life force that's within them, in a manner of speaking. And all at once I had this feeling that this reverence and this awe was actually coming back at me as well, in that, and the message actually that kind of came along with it was, okay, we get it. You guys got it this time. That was what it felt like to me. It was like a sort of acknowledgement of, I don't know, in some way, I don't really even know what I'm saying, whether it's some sort of just me personally, and maybe it's a multi-layered thing. Maybe it's something that broke within me, that I am appreciative of myself and it was being reflected back. And perhaps also in that same feeling, I just feel like there was an interaction there that it was regal, and it was so beautiful. It was awesome. And I when I got home, I wanted to see, as I gazed out at my own backyard, if I could see that same aura, and I can. And it's just beautiful. I can't today, right this moment, as I look out. It's like I have to become unfocused, and I guess that's what I was doing yesterday in the car on the way home.
It's what you're describing is a reverent honoring of the beauty in you and all the others, and back and forth. But it feels to me that yes, what you said, it's both and more.
Right.
Because I've experienced similar things, and I've had conversations with those who've experienced, direct conversations with those who experienced similar things, and then I've seen others out there that have spoken about that as well recently.
Yeah, that interacting with one's environment and every little noticing, revealing something new. I have so loved your assistance in this, BZ, with saying, you know, to invite things to come and play, and to just to what have you to reveal to me in this moment of now. And some of it is just so awesome, you know, the beauty and the honoring that takes place. That's a very good way to put that.
Well, one of the ways that I love to hold it is being as doing. So some people say, you know, being is being. You're just here and you go do something. Okay, but what you're describing and what I have developed an addiction to is being as doing. So my being becomes an actual doing. So for example, there were times when I'm at work and I've got to do a bunch of different things, and you know, right now it's really, really hot, and well, by my standards, not by your guys' standards, but I'm a heat wimp, so and part of my brain will go, you know, I wish, you know, anyways, have some time off. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, you have, you know, a minute or two, so being is doing. So I stop wherever I am. Sometimes it's by, you know, if there's other animals or other beings or nature, trees, or I'm in a building, whatever. It doesn't really matter where I am. And I just completely, it's almost like I invite whatever is around me, not only to notice, but with all of my senses. So my eyes and feeling and all the senses, the regular linear senses, and then all of my multidimensional aspect senses. And I come into coherence with whatever that setting is. So I'm being, and in that moment I'm actually being as doing. So what I'm doing a lot. I'm actually quieting the linear mind. I'm completely stopping for a minute. So all of the to-dos just for pause, you know, I mean, people say, you know, and when I first started doing it, I check, I say, well, a lot of people take a cigarette break or a coffee break or this break or that break or, you know, bathroom break. Okay, well, I don't smoke, I don't drink coffee, so these are my, you know, coffee, cigarette, whatever breaks, and nobody kibitz about that, so, okay. So I get in that groove, and when in that moment of, it's a moment of pause, you know, where I'm being, and when I come into a coherence with whatever that setting is, and sometimes there are other beings involved, whether they're animals or people nearby or right in front of me, maybe in an office with someone in there going on about something, and I can still be present with what they're talking about, but I'm also being in the moment and coming into coherence. And what I found is that it's almost like there's a blending of all of the, this doesn't sound right, but the not only the molecules, but the energy structures. So the energy frequencies, where it's more than a dance and more than a mirroring. Yet I don't, maybe it's because sometimes they aren't necessarily at the same vibrational frequency that I am. So I'm not lowering down.
No, but like a melding, a simultaneous coexisting.
Yeah. And the way that I experience it with all my different senses is, you know, as if maybe you were watching a movie or a video clip where there's effervescence and there's all different colors and there's kind of like streams of motion and music and notes, but not that you distinctly hear them. It's more like you feel and sense and see them, is the way. Anyways, it's a very interesting, and you can just do it by just stopping, as you're already starting to do it, Sheila, where you're being with it. And as you do more of that, there's that honoring back and forth, because everything is alive. Everything is all energy. So it's all the same stuff at its base. And it's simply how we acknowledge it or don't, judge it or don't. But all of that is available to us, those conversations, those communications, those connections, those interactions, that coherence with that. And, you know, it has so much to share, and we can partake in, and an honoring. It's beholding. We behold what is seeing, and we actually become what we behold.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, well, we've talked about that because we've kind of experienced that in different, like, videos or something. Like, remember when we were talking about how you in particular, Lisa, were saying that you were feeling as though that was you sitting in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, and on some level, it is you sitting in front of you. This is the part that I know blows everybody's mind, but being water and snowflakes is always my go-to metaphor for that, because everybody gets that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can get that one. And it's the same thing. Yeah, that's, well, to get something like this on an existential level, you know, or to think about it, hypothesize about it, talk about it, is all exciting and well and good, but actually beginning to experience it,
that's fun. The existential, that's just kind of, you know,
yeah,
what party nuts and scotch or something.
I mean,
Nowhere near as fun as.
Yeah, you know, talking about it and all of that is exciting. Not gonna kid you about that, but actually beginning to experience it. And, well, of course, if I hadn't been talking about it and looking into it, I wouldn't understand it possibly or whatever. But, you know, it's so much. Yes, and I love the fact that you said it was addicting, because that's almost what it feels like. Because it's that what's next. I'm so looking forward to, you know, what's next, because there's so much to discover and explore. Remember, I'm the one that jumps straight to the fantastical. And, you know, with my one-time twice now, 2 or 3 times now, we've seen that chipmunk in the yard.
Yes.
But we had a hummingbird.
Yeah, he came really close to me today by myself out there.
Oh, the chipmunk? He did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. I saw him come up underneath the swing today, from my bedroom window.
Yes.
But I have not. I've lived here for 6 years, and I've not ever seen a hummingbird here, not once. And today, well, I was sitting out, and Lisa and I were talking about what took place yesterday, actually. And this one lone little hummingbird came and was flying almost like she was looking in the window of the back porch of my house. And then she just flew off. It was the coolest thing. I mean, I haven't ever seen a hummingbird anywhere around this house. Not once in the whole time we've lived here. We used to have them when we lived out in Rockwell before we lived here. But I mean, I have lots of videos that my husband took before we separated of the video, because we had a hummingbird feeder, and, you know, we just loved birds. And but have never seen one here at this house. That was the first. So that was a bit of a treat today too.
Yeah. Well, hummingbird, you know, look up the hummingbird meaning is in the.
I did. I remember doing that when you had one fly in your house. So yeah, I know what that means, and I'll put a link to that in the video.
Yeah.
So anybody else is curious about what does a hummingbird mean?
Yeah. Well, what the being is doing, it's really the way that you described it a moment ago. I forgot. Not noticing you were somewhere when you were talking about around you mentioning it as addicted to it. Oh, I know. You were saying, looking what's next. And the way that I experience it is it's the in-breath and the out-breath. So it's that, which another way is the same thing as saying the matter and antimatter. So the material in form and all the possibilities. But it's that part right in the middle where the in and the out flow and pass. And so as you the language from the old just doesn't do it. It's this amazing, rich, beautiful, multi-sensory, incredible textures and tapestry of experiences, and you can do it with anything. You can do it just inside of a room with a chair or whatever. It doesn't even have to be a special room or your favorite room, or it could be in a workroom at work, or it could be in a garage or in your car or out in the park, or if you work and there's outside settings. You are the integral component to the ability to do it. And in that in-breath and out-breath, in that being as doing, in that soft focus, there will be different ways for different people to get themselves into it. But it's aside from joyous and amazing and giddy and fun and addictive and wow, this is so cool. It's a realization that you truly are the fabric of everything else. There is no separate delineation. There is not this and this and this and this that are all separate things. It's all one. The energies flummers. Yes, there's different vibrational frequencies at which they hold, which give the illusion of the differences in mass and solidity and actual structure and all that. But it's very, I'm doing a terrible job describing something that is so beautiful. And but perhaps in the hope of fumbling through it, people will take some moments to have some in-breaths and some out-breaths to really just be for a moment and watch, behold all the doing that unfolds from that. Because it will put, one way to say it would put everything else in perspective, to realize that it really, you can clearly see instantaneously that the rest is all illusory. And that once you are in the, and even if you do it for just a nanosecond once, it will be unmistakable to you, and you can repeat it. And so, like I said, the reason I mentioned the different places where I do it at work is because if you have the, I got to work, and that's just a bullshit excuse. Because, I work long hours and I do it all the time. And so, but what happens is, so if there are, you mentioned, Sheila, about conversation with the trees, so you can have conversations all the time. I mean, I've had conversations with walls of a building. Now, let me tell you, I was a mite surprised when I was having a conversation with a wall of a building, but okay, you know. But and I think part of it is my own, still a linear bias, but when there are beings, animals involved, the conversations are just, you know, amazing that occur, and they're not. We tend as linear humans to kind of label everything and peg everything, and so real conversations are not as all that we would describe them thinking of them. And I wanted to share something else that happened, because I think this will help explain this a little better. Not only is it that where you can see that you are part of everything, and there's so much going on, and I don't mean, you know, with Tennessee and Trump and Putin and blah, blah, blah. But there's so much going on, even if you just sat on a patch of grass that was 10 by 10, you know, and only a few things like a bird occasionally and a butterfly. And there's so much going on. You know, there's so much that you have never noticed, never seen, never realized, never partaken. That's right there on so many levels, and so many frequencies, and so many dimensions, and so many ranges of, again, to use a linear placeholder, solidity. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but to kind of get a point across. So the other day I was actually looking at a description of a lens, a camera lens, a fancy optic that I was looking at for a long lens, and I was looking at the description of it, and then they had some photographs, and so, you know, taken with this lens. They were pretty nice photographs. But I got to this, and I was kind of doing something at the same time, so most of mine wasn't. And I then actually turned in to pay a little bit more attention, because whatever it was I was listening to, I forgot. But now I gave it my undivided attention, and I flipped to this one photograph. And it was a field with sunflowers. And so one sunflower was sharp focus, and the rest, you could tell they were sunflowers, even though they were kind of just soft greens and yellows and stuff. And I'm looking at the picture, the first thought, well, that's, you know, that's a beautiful picture, and that's a beautiful photograph. And you could tell the quality of the image from the clarity, even in the soft focusedness of it, that it was a really nice lens doing it. So my linear brain is kind of thinking of it, because that's what I was doing, you know, looking at the lens. And the rest of me is looking at the picture going, the picture's moving. And I'm looking at the picture, and I'm saying, the sunflower petals are just ever so gently blowing in the breeze. And I'm looking at the picture. And then I start noticing other things in the picture. I'm thinking, well, what I realized, and so I stopped for a minute, and I thought, okay, this is weird. So I opened up my photographic equipment on my computer, and I went back and looked at some of my pictures, a similar kind of flowers that, you know, because I take a lot of macro flower pictures, which is really up close, or a soft focus background. Anyway, so I flipped through, and I thought, that flower is moving too. And what I realized is that this has been happening for a couple months now, but it was mostly happening with my own photographs. And I took it as, well, yeah, because I'm remembering being there, taking the photograph, kind of the sights and sounds and things around me. So I'm kind of maybe recalling or reliving that thing. And then I flipped back to the photograph, which wasn't mine, so I haven't been there, and, you know, I've seen cool fields with sunflowers, and the same thing, and different parts. It wasn't the same part that I saw, it was different parts. But I thought, well, that's what we're seeing. So things are not linear, as in it was this picture, whatever date the photographer took it, and, you know, probably the sunflowers don't even exist anymore. Because it's multidimensional. And in these photographs, and I've since noticed it in other things too, but these are, because anybody can look at photographs and do this. It's an energetic envelope that was taken in that moment, and everything within the scope of that photograph. So all of that energy, data, light, encodement, and frequency is captured. So it's like walking into a holograph, right? If you're on the holodeck on Star Trek or something, you are in that. So that is a moment, and you're in the moment.
You know what this is? And I know because I can hear it out there. There's a lot of folks going, oh my God, the Harry Potter paintings. And that is exactly that. But, you know, we've been leaving little information like that for ourselves everywhere. Wow. I have not experienced that.
Well, think about it. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, however, I haven't looked or noticed either. So,
Lisa, hold your thought for 1 second because I want to hear that. But I just want to, this is a programming note. So the reason I told that the way I did was because I have been doing that, experiencing that, we'll say, and blowing it off, brushing it off, ignoring it because it was happening with my photographs.
right.
So my brain or my descriptors of it would have been, yeah, I remember X, Y, and Z, thinking I was just, remembering. And that wasn't, well, yes, probably on one level I was, but that wasn't at all what was happening. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to say, we're holographic in nature. So on some reason, on some level, that makes perfect sense to me. And it's almost as though that photograph, okay, so I'm thinking of the AIMS program. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Wayne Dyer was talking about it in one of his programs, but they take a photograph and they beam frequencies at the photograph, and just the fact that the photograph represents you holographically, it's as though you're aiming those right directly at you, those beams. But so on one level, as the flower themselves change on a holographic level, wouldn't the flowers in the photo too? I mean, wouldn't there be like life and movement? I don't know.
Oh, I know what you're speaking of there, Lisa, when you were talking about that. Because you made me think about what we were taught when I was learning Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
To distance Reiki that way, it's best if you have a picture, at least in your mind, if not in person, to beam.
I forgot that piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I just know that they can use pictures in place of people because it is a piece of you. It's a holographic representation of you in that moment. So that's why that frequency beaming at the photo works. But,
well, there's also, well, it used to be long time ago, the indigenous would not have their pictures taken for that very reason. It was a capturing of the essence of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was to be none of that. They didn't want that. So, wow.
Interesting.
And so, how easy, if someone such as yourself, BZ, who's been doing this for years and years and years and years, will discount your own experience and just sort of writing it off to, well, I was there, I experienced it, of course I'm going to feel the same thing and see the same thing I did at that time.
Yeah, and in that brushing off, I was even discounting what I was actually experiencing right in the moment of looking at the photograph again, because if I was doing both simultaneously. So yes, I could have described, what that was, but that wasn't what I was looking at right that moment, because it was, if you took tools and you're standing outside and you take tools, I don't know what they're called, but I know there's probably tools that will measure the the direction of the wind, the velocity, the dew point, the sound, you can measure all these different things, right?
Right.
So those are kind of static linear tools.
Right.
And in that moment that was happening. So this is an energetic envelope in the photograph of that moment. And that moment is a living moment. So when you're with the photograph, you're in a living moment. And since observation or the observer effect is creation, you actually are changing it. That's why I say that energetic envelopes are not static, because as each one partakes in that energetic envelope, whatever time they're doing it, they are expanding the envelope because their energy is now commingling with that moment of frequency.
Well, y'all keep talking. I'm going to turn my video off for a second so I can open the window because it's getting dark in here, and I think I'll spare everybody the boob shot. Because I have to stand up and bend over my computer.
Oh yeah, the new desk has you at a
There we go. That's a little bit better.
No worries.
Yeah, just a little better.
And the other thing too is this kind of I know that a lot of people ask for tools or recipes or manual or whatever, but pause for a moment wherever you are as you watch this, go outside, wherever you feel moved to go, and you have, I'll describe it in just really plain, bland, linear language. You have so many psychic and quantum type powers coming online. Not at all accurate, and it's wholly a pale description. But anyways, it's just a linear place. So coming online right this moment. And as always, and probably more than ever before, people are so caught up in what's going on because they're in a lot of pain or angst or hurry up or whatever it is, that they're pushing it aside and they're not noticing. And as we've talked about many, many, many times, this all is an inside job. So when you look out there and you say, well, when the hell is that going to happen? Put that away for a minute, close the blind on it, and turn inside. Because as you notice and interact with and play with these things right within you that you don't need a manual for, you don't need directions, you just encounter it, and you just play. It's that, however it works for you. It does a couple things. One, it's really cool, and then you realize it's really fun, and it's really beautiful, and really amazing, and wow, is it sublimely delicious? And then you realize that as you get in that in-breath and that out-breath, it changes how you walk in just the linear world when you're not necessarily noticing and whatever. And it changes the people that you come in contact with, that you transmit, whether you're physically in their space or in an email, on the phone, whatever it is. Because as you have that experience, you're coming into coherence, and the energy frequency.
You're going a little robo on it.
As you have, how's that?
Well, it was a little robo, and if you can repeat it, maybe we will get.
I said, and as you have those experiences, and you come into coherence with that, you're creating convergence of fields of others that are doing the same, and they're growing. Each one kind of magnifies on itself, and that it changes. You again, linear. You could say the programming. It changes the trajectory. It changes. It amplifies the current amplification and magnification that's already going on it puts jetpacks on all of it. Just the simple kind of, being as doing that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. It's fun. It could take a minute or hours, however you want. You can do it in between family obligations or work or whatever,
After I had that experience on Sunday that I shared with you, and I don't know if we did that publicly or not.
No.
We didn't. The one, okay, well, I had an experience on Sunday where I was feeling the energy in my hand, and every time I talk about this, I can feel it begin again. So I just know that it's right there all the time. It's just the focus and attention was elsewhere, and so I wasn't feeling it. So the minute I start discussing it, I can feel it again. And I described it to BZ and Lisa on Sunday as balls of energy. And then I could see myself, because I was actually sitting with my eyes closed, feeling these balls of energy in my hand. And then all of a sudden I could see in my mind's eye what those balls of energy actually looked like, in that they were moving torus fields.
Mm-hmm.
And as I sat there, I consciously felt them, I was playing. So, but I also had a bit of a reverence as well at the same time. And I didn't, I felt, this can sound weird to say, I felt more than myself, okay? So it was that melding maybe that you might want to talk about or whatever. I could feel a more expanded, I don't want to say higher, a more expanded aspect of myself present. Okay, I don't know how else to explain it other than that, but at any rate, and it just, as I was sitting there feeling this and seeing this in my mind's eye and experiencing this, it came to me, this is how, once we actually, everyone can do it and sustain it at all times, and we get to the point, because I just know that this is, and it's going to happen, I got to feeling for some of us rather quickly. It's not to leave anybody out or anything else. I think it's a matter of focus and attention. Not saying I've got it, because this is just coming new for me as of Sunday. I've heard Patty Greer talk about the fact that she felt through all of her research and the things that she's done with the crop circles that the earth itself works with plasma fields. And I know that in my puzzle piece collecting, that we are, having these plasma fields come in and all of this, right? So I had this experience, and I felt this is how we go from the whole idea of manifesting to materialization. It's going to be, this is why we're not going to need money, folks, in my view, because we're going to eventually be able to materialize what we need. We are the replicators. That's actually what we said in that conversation that we had that wasn't published. And I don't even know why I went here.
Because you were talking about the money thing, and I said, well, yeah, people say, well, let's get them to reveal the technology and give us the replicators. And of course, I've always laughed big guffaws at that, thinking, you're looking at 3 replicators right here. They're right here. We've already got them.
Yeah, that experience alone, in and of itself, the fact that I can talk about it and I feel the energy pulsing again, I know, and I know that there's nothing holding me back at this point but me. There's no body standing in my way. There's no, because all of that we're seeing out here playing out, on the most expansive level for me, that's all of us playing out whatever it is we need to play out to come out full visible for those of us that still aren't.
Yeah, we're basically we're cleaning up and sweeping up the dustbin and, you know, taking the trash out and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And so that's why I think I'm giddy, because I finally get it. There's nothing holding me back but me.
And I make a program note right there. And it's really important. What you just said is incredibly powerful and important. And it's that simple. It is absolutely that effortless and that simple. And it is excruciatingly difficult.
Yes.
And remember, I've said in at least one other, maybe two other videos, if not more, that when you have that intersection, when you have that convergence of the very simple and excruciatingly difficult at the same time, it has this sweet, poignant zing to it. You know that you are on to something and in something and just about to blossom completely from that. And you just have to keep going on it's that simple, and you'll have moments of that, and it's that excruciatingly difficult, and you'll have moments of that, but you keep going with it.
Yes, and all of that produces in me those that whole, again, that feeling like I'm standing right on the edge of forever, and the joyful emotion wells up inside of me, and it just wants to spill out because it's so exciting. I have a friend who doesn't see any of these videos. She's got the best heart, but she's, you know, she just doesn't know from any of this. But she looked at me today and she said, "Okay, you're glowing. What's going on?" And because, you know, she asked about my trip. She knows I've shared with her, you know, that, you know, what I've not hidden anything from her. She's not terribly interested, and she doesn't really understand it. And, you know, she walks in a different manner. She's Christian, and so, you know, that's a place we don't go. But she knows my feelings on it, because I have told her I think we're so much more than what, you know, that what we're led to believe. At any rate, I just said to her that it went awesome, and that, you know, things were going to be, you know, coming out very soon. She said, "Oh, they already are." And I was shocked by that, because she doesn't watch the news and she doesn't know from any of that, but she knows that things are happening, you know. And so I don't know, it was it's just been an overall really cool couple of days for me. And I'm just so excited for, actually we're making plans. We're going to go to the park for the eclipse, because I got a feeling that this is going to be a highly energetic day. And
it is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And the other thing that's people might notice for the first time, or notice for the first time without brushing it off, or go, yeah, I'm doing that all the time, is that, again, in that, you know, your multidimensional is showing, right? You know, where you're having experience. One way you might describe it is you're having experiences on experiences simultaneously. You're having dimensional experiences on experiences. What was the other word that I used when I wrote that? Existences.
Okay. Yes.
So existences on existences at the same time. So one of the ways that I would give an example, one of the examples that I have had, where I can be somebody's, well, example, I've been sitting in this particular chair, which is by my big computer over to my right, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing at the computer. So that's just linear and typing and whatever, probably in the room assisting Heather, whatever. And then there's a big bow window out here with this big giant maple over their head. And anyways, and it's all light will twitter and I'll catch something. And so I'm experiencing and fully involved in a person sitting in a computer doing computer stuff.
Right.
Engaged with people around the world in this particular room. And I'm also experiencing just what's unfolding and breathing out right outside the window. So those are at the same time. And because, the Skype window may be, dinging and there's whatever. But I'm also had at the same time where I can hear something all of a sudden, and it's a conversation that I can make out the words, well, though maybe not enough to transcribe them. But there's no radio on. There's no telephone hooked up. There's no people in the near future, and Keegan doesn't speak that kind of language, yet. And I think that's interesting. And then I listen beyond the words to get, as if I was playing back a sound audio, because I'm doing forensics, like, okay, well, where were they? And I can hear, I'll call it, downtown or town noises. And there are no, where I am, there's no downtown nearby, not within an audible distance for me, even if I had super power. I've got good ears, but I thought, okay. So now I'm going, well, and I'm kind of, now those are three things. And then something catches my eye again, with the light playing outside. And so it's almost that I'm the antenna, receiving antenna as well as transmitting. And so I may cock my head the other way, and now I'm hearing something totally different, where in the way I may describe it as the music of the spheres, it's celestial music is another way to describe it. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely not of of the linear persuasion. And each one I'm fully present with, fully hearing, fully as if it was the only thing, as if nothing else was good. These different things that I've had more than that. But this one just happened, a couple hours ago, so that comes to mind. So on the one hand, they're experiences, but they're also, I say they're existences on existences, because, and I'm not certain exactly how to frame it, but I am someplace else in a different realm at the same time. So one might say, a lot of my awareness is that this physical body is sitting in this chair, and I could describe, the address of where it is. But I'm also fully, now I haven't actually looked to see, me, just aside from what I'm experiencing there, where the music of the celestial music was, or where the voice and the conversation was. But anyways, this is happening a lot, and sometimes it may happen at work, and I happen to be, in the office talking to the work people, and this is going on, and I'm trying to stay focused, so I will have to then tune out there.
So would you say that, so what I understood you to say just now is that these experiences that you're having.
Can I have a nut job?
I apologize. One moment. I forgot to mute my phone, apparently. And so sorry. So it sounds to me, what I felt through your explanation there is that those were other existences that were you to divert your full focus and attention to, you could have experienced? Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, I would change the word. I would change the word to R.
Oh, okay. Well, because
they're not linear.
Right.
They're
Okay.
right now. In fact, we're not actually in. We're not in linear time anymore.
I realize that. I mean, and I remember last week, I think it was, when we were on our way home from the hearing with Heather, I had an experience, I think I shared, and I can't remember if we shared it on camera or not, where I was running in the field beside us, you know, like in the big, you know, fields in the mountains there. And I was also having a tea party in a backyard, but I was clear that it was me, but not in this physical vessel. And so that sounds to me what you're describing. I was clear that that was me, okay, but I wasn't able to. I was aware of myself in the vehicle, and I was aware but not fully, you know, I was more aware of myself in the vehicle than I was anything else. But for very brief moments, I experienced myself doing something else. I'm not sure what I looked like with the running in the field, okay, or felt like, you know what I mean? But I was very clear about the tea party. It was a little girl, and it might have even been just me, my inner child, whatever, not clear on that. But I was a physical little girl having a tea party in a field with the fairies. Now, that one was more visceral than the running in the field, but neither of them were sustainable for a very long period. And it was more dreamlike, or, yeah, see, the language isn't very helpful here.
That's putting it mildly.
I know, right?
To me, it looked like you were falling asleep, and I could feel you leave. And then I could feel you return.
See, so that's what I'm saying. Full focus and attention. This is what I'm describing. Not that we're not capable of having full focus, and because clearly there's focus and attention in the other portions of my being at all in any given moment of the quantum time, because it's not linear. I get that.
Yeah, and as you get more remembered of this, maybe a wholly inaccurate but close way to describe it. You can, I mean, you know, like the one I was just describing, which happened earlier today, I was fully focused in all of the different places. So for example, you know how if you were just out, you were outside having a conversation with somebody, you're talking about maybe there's a lawn mowing kid or somebody's coming up the mow lawn, and you're talking, giving instructions, whatever, right? And someone's inside and they can overhear what you're doing, right?
Right.
And maybe look out the window and get against it, right? So this is the same thing, except you're inside as well.
No, I mean, I get I'm fully on board with you. I'm right there with you.
So, well, the point I was trying to make with that is that you can, soft focus is a good way to let yourself go there, but you can be absolutely focused where as if I'm right here talking to you, and if I look down and I can pet Keegan and have a conversation with simultaneously, this is the same kind of thing.
And I'm realizing that eventually I feel, I mean, I think eventually I'm going to be very much aware of myself in all of those different levels and existences. Again, I mean, the me that's speaking this moment, this portion of the snowflake, this consciousness, this Sheila consciousness, because I don't even know the name of the little girl. It could have been Sheila, but it could have been somebody else all together. And I don't even know the sex or the age or anything of the me that was running through the field. No clue. But that's what I mean by my full focus and attention wasn't there, or I feel I would have known. You see what I'm saying? And
well,
I feel,
although I think I'm trying to kind of tease out my remembering when I first started and kind of how when you're in the soft focus and you notice it, right?
mm-hmm.
It's as if, and when you connect with that other thing that's simultaneously happening, it's as if you flipped off the switches in your linear brain that were judgment, that were categorizing, and you simply are being with it. So when someone else may be hearing this story or experience, and so because they're not self-focused, because probably, or maybe they haven't had these kinds of, allow themselves to have these kinds of things yet, or notice the linear, closed heart, linear mind automatically dissects because they're looking for proof in this and that and the other thing. So I'll say that again a little bit more specifically, that it doesn't occur to you when you're in that space, and intentionally now it doesn't occur to me. I mean, I could do it and look, and I'll go that in a minute, but it doesn't occur to you to have those judgments, to kind of parse those things out. You're simply experiencing you in the car and you running along in the field and you having a tea party. It just is. There's nothing weird about it. There's nothing unusual about it. There's nothing, it's simply so. You know what I mean? And at the same time, part of you, since you here, right, it's a newer noticing. It's a cool, oh, wow, hey, look at me go. That's cool, right? So, so that's actually another layer of the simultaneousness of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And then
maybe that's the smarminess of me that wants to be fully focused, to fully dive into that aspect of my I will say for myself, eventually, I think that I will be able to fully dive into with full focus and attention and just be that portion of myself. And it should I choose consciously.
Well, I've had this one particular time. I mean, there's been a lot, but we were talking about that, something about, I don't know, something about there's something you did with your hand and the field. I don't know. Anyway, something probably. I know where I was standing. I was standing in this one place at work. I'm not going to go into details because of my agreements with work, but I was standing in this one place at work, and I was doing a task. It was a manual task, although it was a nice day, so it was enjoyable. And so my hands are doing this manual task, and I'm focused on that. And then, and I don't know how the right languaging for this to kind of break it, tease it out, but I was then also on a ship, and I was doing my work, whatever it is that I didn't look down if I had an insignia or any of that kind of stuff. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, I was on the ship and I was having a conversation, walking in one of the halls with another, I think it was another female officer, it comes to mind, would be the appropriate term. And we were walking down, I had a clipboard in one hand, and we were walking through and we were discussing, and there were other beings in, kind of in the corridors, we'll say. and we were going to a meeting, and so we were fully involved. So I was fully involved in that conversation. And my body was still here doing this and focused on that, because afterwards I checked and everything was the way it was supposed to. And someone on the here part, at work, walked up and said something to me. And I don't know how to describe this. So the me that was standing there at work doing this thing looked over, the physical body looked over, right? And at the same time, the me that was walking, having this conversation with the clipboard in my arm, said, I got to take this, I'll get back to you. And I turned and said, I'm sorry, can you say that again? To the physical person right here. And they said whatever they said. And I said, oh, yeah, no problem. I'm just going to finish this and whatever. And I turned and looked, and I had done everything I was supposed to be doing. And, I'll be there in 5 or something. And they went off and did their thing. And I finished up. And I think I had to go, but I think I may have just kind of at least had the thought to want to go back on that conversation that I was with, in the halls with the person with the clipboard. Me as a clipboard and walking the person. So what I'm saying is that you can do this you can do it simultaneously and awake. You don't have to do it in meditation. I seem to have, and I don't know the right word, a predisposition to, a predilection, a preference, or whatever. You insert a word.
A propensity.
Yeah. For doing it with my eyes, because I had so much bloody trouble, eons ago trying to friggin' meditate. So I can do all sorts of things with my eyes open and not a hell of a lot. I can do some meditation, but I do it in a different way. So anyways, that's no problem for me. Now, other people can do things in meditation that, because they let themselves.
See, you just described what I feel like eventually I'll be able to do. But see, that's exactly what I was speaking of. Your focus and attention, you turned and, said to whomever you were speaking with the clipboard, got to take this. And that's what I'm saying. I feel that, that's really all I'm saying. We're in agreement here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So for a couple of people just said, well, that's crazy. I can do that. Have you ever been driving your car and you drive up wherever your destination is, go, oh, I'm here already. Okay, that's crazy and ridiculous. No, actually not, because you do it all the time. So who drove the car?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who drives for, any length of time back and forth to work. Like, I used to work in South Charlotte, almost to the South Carolina border, and lived on the north side of, not even in Charlotte, but in the north part of Charlotte. And it would take, 35, 40 minutes one way. And so, yeah, lots of times I'd be all of a sudden, okay, where the hell am I? Did I miss my exit? Because I was on the right road, but I wasn't there. And so, yeah, that is part of everybody's experience, that even folks who are like, oh, this is all woo-woo and that's bullshit. No. Sorry, no.
And that's what, so another way, that example of the driving the car, so you already do this. And now you're just being cognizant of doing it, and you're remembering the other, you're not only remembering, but you're being present with the other things that you're doing, such as the conversation on the.
Right.
And you're actively, the other thing I was saying is that you're actively doing at the same time, because the project that I was doing here, at this workspace, was at a different stage from when I went off, and it was about 15 minutes when I was in the thing, right? And the person said something to me. So if you mark those times, it's about 15 minutes. And a lot of stuff had been done you know, me in, let's say, the blue shirt who was tasked to do X, Y, and Z had got X and Y and part of Z done exactly the way it should have been done, in a, you know, in a neat, delicate way, right? And had also been having this conversation, setting things up, making, you know, decisions, agreements, whatever it was over here. Does that make sense?
Well, and I also want to bring this up too for those who are like, well, I don't ever have any of these multidimensional experiences. I want to have some of these. I will bet money that you are, and you're not even realizing it. Aside from the driving thing, okay, because that's a real thing. Everybody has experienced that. I would also ask, because this has been happening more and more and more and more to me, I will be reading something or watching something or listening to something and find that, oh, I've continued to read. I've continued through the whole page. I couldn't tell you what I read. I have been reading out loud to Lisa and said, I'm going to have to go back and read that again because I wasn't here. You know, in some of these cases, I'm not quite sure where I was or what I was doing or who I was with. That's where, you know, like I said, I'm looking for ways, thinking of ways, and ready to begin practicing some ways to hone that focus and attention so that when I do go off on these little jaunts, I know where I'm going and what I'm doing. And, you know, because I think that would be really cool too.
Yeah, and so let me go back to something I think I started to touch on before and maybe gummed up, but you just brought it up again. So, you know, so in my experiences, yes, I've done, you know, I can remember being where you're describing that you're just starting to be, and I remember doing what you just described that you want to do, or, you know, about remembering and all that kind of stuff. And then, I don't think there's a very long transition between any of those. But then, go back to what I said before, where you don't need to categorize it because you are fully present in the different things that you're doing. And since you were there and you know it, there's no need to dissect it and chapter and verse it, let's say. Does that make sense? So let's, in the example I just gave a minute ago, so you were at work doing the thing and you did what it was, and you were on the ship having this conversation because you were laying things out, right? And they got done, right? And you were fully present doing them. So there isn't that attachment to all the details of what it was. Does that make sense? It's not.
Oh, I see. So what I hear you saying now is that not to be attached of having that validation, confirmation, the knowledge.
That could be, yeah, that could be exactly right. The validation, because it could be, it's because in the energy of kind of grasping for that proving, that validation, you're actually now a mismatch to the frequency that allowed you to remember at least the doing of those 2 things, 3 things, 4 things, whatever they were, if not chapter and verse of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I guess I don't.
And also, it just doesn't matter to you. That's kind of the other side of that. The other side of that.
No, you're right. It doesn't really matter. It's just interesting, and I would like to.
Yeah.
And I also feel like, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like eventually, and it's not like I'm striving for any of this. I am just kind of kicking back and seeing what unfolds. But I have a feeling, it's my feeling, that the ability to be more fully present in any given one of the aspects or multidimensional portions of self simultaneously and realize it, know it, feel it, and experience it with
Piece of cake.
yeah, I know. I'm just saying. I know that's
I haven't
coming.
gotten fully there yet, but it's a piece of cake. From what I have a direct experience doing myself already, yes, it's a. So in other words, to give people an example, each one of us, there's 3 of us here. So I'm fully focused this moment in this conversation, and I'm also fully immersed and focused and present in doing this and that and a couple other things that are not all in the same geographical space on this planet or dimensions and whatever, right? But I'm just as fully present there as here. And if I chose, I could call them up. I could kind of, play my own video of it back.
Well, that's what I'm saying. See, you have that ability at this point in time. And right now I'm aware that I do have the ability. I'm just not consciously aware of it in this moment of now. But I feel that coming, not just for me, for all of us.
Right. And when you had the beauty of the beauty from a parsing out, dissecting, not analyzing but analytical type way of the driving in the car with you running alongside the car in the field and the tea party. The beauty, aside from all sorts of the other really cool, beautiful things about that, right? The sublimely deliciousness of it, which is the addictive given part. But the beauty of the way you described it and kind of how you're holding it in general, to my ears and heart, but in specific to you with your buddy there, the reason that it's so beautiful is because you haven't felt compelled, at least that you're giving voice to here and the other times we've talked about it, you haven't felt compelled to dissect the bejesus out of it.
No.
To label the bejesus out, to slot it in this. And that the reason that that's so beautiful, not only on a couple areas. So one, from the transitioning from the linear mind leading the show to the heart, knowing where you're going and all of that. But it's, again, that innate that's coming up to say, brava, because in not doing that would be the accurate way to say it. In not doing that, you've actually furthered, enhanced, built more muscles. There's lots of ways we could describe it. The ability to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I didn't hold it in that manner, but it does make sense. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think to hold it in that manner, but it does make sense. Wow. And
I just have fun watching you run through the field alongside the road.
I just
times I've run alongside with you and we're laughing about you guys in the car.
I tell you, it's been so awesome in the last just little bit here, even that I can't even, I don't have words. I don't have the proper words, actually. The language just fails to compare, and to assist in the description of what it's been like and feeling like. And I want to say in this moment of now that there are a lot of viewers that watch us a lot, that I can tell you, I can feel you guys. I can feel you, and I know you feel me, because several of you have reached out to me and stated that. And I've had a lot of comments just in the last 24 hours that the icon world has come alive for a lot of folks. And so I wanted to publicly say that those of you that have contacted me, I feel you. I know you. There are some of you that haven't contacted me that I want you to know I feel you. And I am so appreciative of all of your love and energy that you've been. I'm not adept as of yet as to answering everyone or knowing exactly who it is that's sending it and all of that sort of thing. But it's happening for all of us. I know that if I'm feeling it and there are, specific few that have reached out, then we are all feeling it. And maybe folks haven't figured out how to language it, or maybe they are doing that whole brush off thing and, because it's too woo-woo or whatever. But I think that all of us are feeling it.
And not only, and just to go back to the brush off, sometimes the brush off is definitely kind of a smarmy-esque, kind of stuff. But sometimes it's completely unnoticed and unintentional, like what I was describing with the photographs. So I didn't realize it. I just said, oh yeah, thinking it was something else, right? And a cool thing, because it was reliving. Basically, what I was looking at the photograph and I was reliving. So that's a skill, that's a quantum ability. But since I've done that for years, I got that right. But it was something in addition to, completely different and a much more expansive in addition to that. And so I didn't even realize until this week, a couple of days ago, when this sunflower in the field happened, that I went and checked. And I thought, well, is it just this photograph? And then I went to mine, and it wasn't. And I noticed, because I was comparing them, that the flower was moved in that one too. And I had to laugh because, sometimes my linear brain, remember I have years of, so I had 3 different computers and I was trying the images on different right? Because I'm going to figure this out. What if, right? No, couldn't get it. They were all doing it. So it didn't matter what computer it was, what device, whatever, it just.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Lisa, you're muted. Did you want to share anything that you've been experiencing of late, or?
Well, it's very similar to what you all have talked about here. Yeah, the drive home was quite magical. I feel like we floated home. There were parts of it too where I was elsewhere as well. But all through all of it, what I can say that the overall new aspect for me personally is, well, it's really subtle and innate, right? And what I'm realizing is, okay, so what I have felt is kind of always been my alone, quiet space. It's very crowded up on her. So there is no quiet space anymore. And I don't mean in a chattery loud, but let me just say that I am feeling and noticing other everywhere now. Absolutely everywhere. And it's interesting too, the way that they will layer. Kind of like with your story, BZ, about the being at work and then also sort of the being at work, but at another level completely. But sometimes the storylines can mesh, or I wonder if there isn't an overlapping scenario that brings my consciousness into the 2 places simultaneously.
Well, sometimes it's preferences and skills, wouldn't you think? I mean, if you're, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that would make a natural, hey, if you're really good at here and you have that ability and you're flowing with it here, then it would make sense that you're doing it there too.
And you would, absolutely.
And Lisa, she rocks that.
Call her in. Yeah. And then I can also see now, Okay, so I'm going to say those experiences, that they'll be spheres or nodes. And then I can also see the sacred geometry. Keegan! That connects the nodes and activates them. So it's almost like those conversations I pick up on, I may not in the moment of picking up on it, like I'll do the same thing, pick up on a fragment of something, and I'll feel haunted by a little piece of that, meaning it sticks with me emotionally. But then another area of my life will activate it again, bring it up, and then I realize, okay, so it feels as though, like getting back to what you said about being a specialist, maybe in a certain skill set, maybe, and it feels like there's one project, and I can see all the layers and angles that I might be working the project, and then I can also cross-reference, like especially when the three of us are conversating. There's also Gina is now in the mix here, and what's funny is in many levels I'm noticing Gina, because see, at first Gina was only in my actual physical 3D world, and now all of a sudden I'm noticing Gina in my icon world, when I used to not notice the people who are thinking of me or that I'm working with on other levels, if this is making any sense. But now all of a sudden I am noticing and I am feeling them more, and I'm tuning into those conversations. And I think the more that I'm actively participating in a certain subject matter, the more I will have access to the other parts and pieces of me that might also be working on something that may help me. There's a television show I watched. Was it Flash Forward? Not Flash Forward. It was it was Awake. It's on Netflix. But so this guy is in one reality, and then he goes to bed, like he falls asleep. And in the next, so there was an accident. And in the accident, his wife dies. But when he goes to sleep and he wakes up in the other world, I'll call it, where his son died and his wife survived. And so he goes to bed and he lives in this world with his wife where they're missing a son. And then when he goes to sleep in that world and wakes up, so he never really sleeps. He's just vacillating every 12 hours or however long he lies down from world to world. And he's a police officer, and he's solving cases. And in the two different worlds are very different, but there are things that are very similar. And there's like numbers and names and all of the things like we would use tarot to. But the point of it is that in that show, he was solving problems in both worlds because they were connected, and he was making the connection and pulling them out. So anyway, it feels to me that is what I'm doing. I am noticing more parts of me and what they're doing. I'm participating in a grander fashion, in a more cohesive manner than I have ever before. So that's been really exciting.
Yeah, and you just gave a beautiful illustration. You know, you were talking about from your personal level on certain things, you know, that were you may not have enumerated, but your skills and these other things, right? So it was a personal level. So as Sheila would say, so that was a metaphor for what's going on, right? Out in the larger, you know, the macrocosm, right? But that's also an illustration of we're the ones we've been waiting for. It's an inside job. We're all in this together. We're all bringing the old, you know, out there down. There are multiple levels and layers. Things are not as they seem, right? So you just hit all of those and a whole ton more in that description of a personal thing that you're experiencing, right? But I can guarantee you the different projects and stuff you're working on, some of them even maybe if they weren't top of mind right in that discussion, are all pieces and components of what's going on, you could say in a linear term, quote unquote, behind the scenes or under the works of what you're seeing in, you know, all the things that are at Tennessee, DC, you know, all these different things that are going on.
Yes.
Trust the plan. Well, because we're all involved together, and we talked about before. It's the plan. I mean, how many? If you read some spiritual essays, or channelings, or however you want to phrase them, the divine plan and this. But hello. So nothing is separate from any of that. They're just nuances that seem very disparate and very scattered. And, so I was having a daydream while I was doing something at work where I was having this, and I was holding a clipboard, and I was, okay, well, someone might categorize it though. I myself know that that wasn't the case.
Right.
But these are examples. And when you're driving, and I know this is for a fact, on not every time I do this driving the car, but a lot of them, right, where you're called to a meeting, or quick, we gotta, help do this, or sheesh, the ship's going, whatever, you might use your metaphor while you're driving the car, because when you get back, I've had a bruise that didn't have when I got in the car, and I didn't hit anything, so you know what I mean? So these are things where you are needed in that moment, and that which is you in this particular planet, in this particular body, in this particular car, whatever one that it has, you're great, you're good, driving the car, guides and however you want to describe it are with you, keep driving, everything's cool, and we need you over here, wherever that over here is, doing X, Y, and Z in this moment.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't know, but that is my premise, is that eventually, won't we? I mean, it would seem the logical, I know. It would seem the logical step. I'm aware of what I just said, but it would seem like the next logical step is that as the consciousness expands, the ability to recall.
Yes, if you want to. Yes, if you want to. If you're attached to that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say attached. I just think it'd be really, really cool.
Fun.
Well, here's the other thing. There's different. The reason I said the attached, because there's different layers, the way I've experienced it, to that attachment.
Okay.
So, for example, one way I might explain that a little bit is you're going and you're doing these different things. You can remember them, but maybe not all of, you remember the stuff that was, on this shirt and this planet, or maybe not. Maybe that's the one you're kind of fuzzy on, but you're over here, right? Okay. But if someone said, hey, we had that meeting on Wednesday, and they're talking about the meeting in the ship, and, and this, so what was it that, Hazel said? Oh, okay, well that was, and so you can recall. So it's very much like the Akash and the full memory and all of that of all memories. They're not all running around in your head at the same moment at the same time, but you pull them. You can say, oh, well, we needed to fill out those forms. We had to get cargo here, or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. No. Yes, I do.
Very similar to, for some reason, I'm not good with movie references, but this comes into mind. Wasn't it in The Matrix when, can't think of her name either, but
Trinity?
There you go. She needs to fly the helicopter, and she's got to access the schematics and the instructions how to fly the helicopter.
Right.
So that's a really good metaphor and somewhat accurate for what we do.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? So she's not fussing over, I got to remember the helicopter and this and the other thing. It's just there, and it's top of mind, and she's flying the helicopter, and she's over there. She's not still thinking, well, I was in, right? You know what I mean? And the other thing is, yes, it's cool, but the novelty, the coolness, the excitingness is much more of the linear brain processing than it is the heart and quantum multidimensional processing. Because and that doesn't take away from the actual experience, whatever that is, of its richness and fun or exciting or daredevilness or whatever, right? That does not.
Well, good, because I'm not going to let it.
That not does diminish it in any way, but that's why I say it's simply so that there isn't that same. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. And that's what I'm saying. I really feel like that eventually, and I'm very clear that I'm the only one stopping me from having all of that now, right this moment. I don't know why I feel I have to go exponentially slow in my, sometimes.
Or you could look at it, go, this is just the right pace for me.
Well, that must be what it is, because, I'm okay with it. I'm just saying, I feel eventually for myself, that's what I would like very much to have that recall.
So change that. What did you just script? Eventually, you will have that recall.
Yes.
Eventually. So eventually, and eventually, and in this moment, eventually, and in this moment, eventually, and this moment, eventually, you will have that. You bet. Absolutely. Because you're a key KACB. You bet. Eventually, you will have that.
Okay, well, check in with me next week. Maybe next week.
So I'm pulling in that recall, right? I'm fleshing out the details of the recall, right? I am, right? Instead of the other one where it's...
Yes. Well, I am multidimensional, and I am having these experiences, and I am having them more often, and I am seeking them out.
Cool.
And I am stepping towards that at an increasing pace.
Right. And you do have the ability to bullet through a field and not let the corn bap you in the face. As you run, or the wheat or whatever.
There's a lot of corn.
Like he can do his weave pulls around the corn and you're running in the field.
There you go.
I just love all of it. It's just been so much fun, and
this is real life. This is reality.
Yes, this is the real.
This is the reality.
Yeah, this is the real stuff. This is the wonder and the awe. This is the experience I'm ready to have more of.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Anything that either of you would like to add to this energetic envelope that we've had? This has been a longer one than we've had in a while, I think.
I would say go play and notice.
Yeah, go play and notice. All right, so I will have everybody's usual stuff in all the usual places and how to get in touch with us all. And until next time.
Much love.